Filmmaker Mike Bennett and Brayden Olson openly discuss their journey together, forming a deeply moving portrait of Brayden's path to finding his father. The following conversation is an audio journal of their experiences. We hope you enjoy.
Should we say this is Finding Carlos, episode 1? Let's just start right now.
Okay. Hi. Wait, hold on. Let me do that again. Hey, guy. Hey, gang.
Hey. Should we say our real names?
You want
our
stage name?
Slang names? Or stage name? Stage name is Mike Sugar Bennett.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the front door.
I mean, I was just in Spain and someone said it,
well,
and I thought that was funny.
What was it again?
Mike Sugar Bennett.
Sugar Bennett?
Yeah.
I hate it.
Sugar.
Okay. All right.
I probably won't ever use that. It's more...
I hope not. So basically, this isn't a podcast. This is an audio journal.
I mean, it kind of is. We've been involved in this project of finding your father.
So this is Finding Carlos. I'm Brayden.
I'm Mike.
And this is Finding Carlos.
And this is Finding Carlos. So let's get into it.
Okay, so I thought I wanted to do this project when we started because I had never met my dad, and I had one picture of him, and it was kind of like a party trick. I'd be like, show this photo, and be like, this is my dad, and it's like this crazy looking like Brazilian guy on a cruise ship like drinking with my mom, and it was like funny to me.
From like
the
photos,
80s, like the year before I was born.
Right.
And that's all I ever knew. That's all I ever had.
That's the one image you've
he looked like a fun guy. And my mom had always told me that it was like the love of her life, but things just didn't work out. And that's all I knew.
You had one image of this of your father.
Mm-hmm. I've always been curious. My mom's always been a bit guarded about telling me, or maybe she just didn't know how to talk about it, so we never talked about it.
Right, but then it went for 35 years. You didn't talk about it.
I'm 35. I don't look 35, but
no.
I look much younger.
Yeah, what have you been doing? You look good.
A lot of Peloton.
Yeah.
One of our sponsors.
We do like the Peloton.
We'll say I paid for it up front, and doesn't mean they can't,
They got to chip in
a little.
Yeah.
Anyways,
just a tiny bit.
So, I don't know. It was always very strange.
I think the longer you went without talking, it just...
Well, it's normal.
Yeah, you just don't talk about it.
But it's always sort of been a point of contention between me and my mom. And, I have two sisters that have different dads, so, it's just weird. It's fucking weird.
Right.
It's just a strange way to grow up.
So you felt a lot of tension growing up?
Well, you just feel like you're not part of the family, basically.
Okay.
You just feel a bit different.
Would there be things you went to when you were growing up where you noticed, oh shit, like everyone else has a dad here? Or,
oh yeah, every single day.
Right.
Yeah, of course. And then my mom remarried, and that could be a whole another episode.
Yeah, I remember hearing some details about
drugs, and we don't need to really get into that. But a lot of drug use and a lot of like abuse mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so
family
dynamics weird. So I thought maybe I'll find my dad and I'll be more like him, because I don't feel like I'm, like my mom. I
mean, I guess we've talked about this for years. I was kind of definitely intrigued who your dad was, and you would give
just to make a movie, not that you actually.
No. I thought, this is great. I'm gonna make a buck off this guy. No, not at all. It would come up, or like your mom would visit for Thanksgiving, and
my mom's a wild card. I mean, she comes to East Village and like blacks out. Like, remember when she came and like her phone got stolen? I had to buy it back off a crackhead off of her. Remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, she's wild. She likes a martini.
Instead of you drinking one right now.
I am drinking one right now, actually.
I guess where I'm going with this is, how did you and I start getting into figuring out like where your father is?
It happened so like. Well, the pandemic, for one, I had a lot of time on my hands.
But we talked about it pre-pandemic, and then I guess like the pandemic sped things up for sure. Like you went pretty deep in that kind of lockdown.
I had a lot of time to do my own research. I mean, you could, you put enough time on the computer, you could pretty much figure anything out. So I basically took the little information I could get out of my mom about previous addresses. I don't have a social security number. I know his first and last name, and it's Carlos, which it's like being named John Smith in the U.S. It's a very common name.
Right.
So to do any sort of research, I mean, I can research his name, but the only way to narrow it down is to look at addresses of places that he's lived over the past 30 years. And so I kind of asked my mom, and she knew a few. So that's like kind of how I started.
I just remember you coming to me, and you were like, I think I found him. I had moved like upstate as well. I was like,
and I lived in New York City for over 10 years, and then during the pandemic I moved upstate because I wasn't working and I, couldn't
to rent.
justify paying rent,
After 10 years, you were kind of burnt out.
And I was burnt. You can only do so much cocaine.
You did a lot. And that was a chapter in your life that you kind of closed, or semi-closed. And
revisit it now and then. But, yeah.
And you came up here.
For 10 years, I didn't even think about my dad. Are you kidding me?
Right. I just know I saw you change during the lockdown, and you became very...
fat.
You became very intrigued, and you were just getting at it, like, every day. Like, I would get, like, a text or a phone call or something, which was an update on more details, little small things here and there.
I talked to my mom, and she's...
Right. But she was not giving you much.
No.
Like, it was mostly you. You went off, like, an old PI address.
My mom
had...
Basically, you can go online and just pay to get someone's... Like, I could type in your name and pay, like, $20 and get all the info that is on record about you. That's public.
For our listeners out there, don't do that. Do not dig deep into me.
It's very easy.
Right.
It's like a background check, basically, on someone. And I still don't know if this is the right one, but, we'll get into it more where we think it is, but... It's a lot of shit to dig through.
The point you got to was that you sent me an image. It's crazy.
I found a guy with the same name, spelled the same, who lived in Pompano Beach. Pompano, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Whatever, in Florida.
In Fort Lauderdale. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beach in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah. He worked in Hollywood, Florida.
Yeah.
Which is weird. And there, some things came up, like a used car dealership came up, and I was like... Oh, fuck, he's not rich. I'm not going to get any money out of this. I'm just kidding. And then I found out that he was the CEO of a crystal company, like crystal healing. Like,
yeah, he had like
shaman,
2 businesses registered.
With a woman who is his life partner. They're not married. Yeah, he's like a crystal shaman healer.
Well, he owned 2 crystal businesses.
So I'm just like, okay, maybe this is the right guy. But I'm like more intrigued by this fucking website of all these crystals, and it's crazy looking. And there's a commercial, and I'm watching the commercial, and there's this guy in the background with crystals on his hands, and he's showing people, and he's in the background. There's like a young girl that's the star of this.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it, there's like a young girl in the front.
Yeah.
Like, hey, welcome to
Romancing the Stone.
I mean, we should. I wasn't going to say it.
You can bleep it out.
We can bleep it out, I guess. In the commercial I saw, you had like done a freeze frame, and in the back,
I saw this guy in the
right
background,
corner,
and this sounds so unbelievable and corny and exaggerated, but I got these like chills in my soul, and I was like, I think that's my dad. Fucking freaked out, and I don't know why, because this dude doesn't even look like me in this quick freeze frame. And then I took a screenshot of his face, and I overlaid it on mine and made like a GIF out of it. Yeah, and we look exactly the same.
I remember.
Except for he's a lot bigger, and I'm really skinny and fit and like look really good right now.
Yeah, I just want to give another shout out to Peloton who's been supporting us.
Maybe get one for Carlos.
But they should help you on the repayments on that thing. It's pretty steep.
I know.
I mean, it's paying off. You look good.
Thanks. So I was like, holy shit. Is this my dad? I'm telling Allison, my beautiful girlfriend.
Beyonce, he forgets that little detail every now and then.
And she's like, oh my God, that's definitely your dad. We have the same teeth.
Not just teeth. It was like
everything.
Nose, ears.
Everything.
It was just
and then
like...
The crazy thing is, when it really locked it in, is I found all these photos of him on Instagram, and all his Google reviews, there's people take photos with him, and he poses. He sticks his tongue out and smiles, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
It's very strange. So that's just
I have a lot of those
so
photos.
weird to me.
For me, like the dead giveaway was when you sent me the GIF, and it would flick between your face and his. To everyone who can't see the image, if you can imagine like a very dark-skinned Brazilian-looking man with long black hair, and then Brady, who's fair-skinned with a red afro, but their faces were identical, like nose, ears, mouth, teeth. It was very strange.
And so that was like, well, this has to be him. What are we going to do now? So we decide.
So we start talking.
So we start talking.
In my life, I'm working a lot as a commercial director. We have this pandemic. I start working a lot less. It was kind of good for me because I got to finish a film I was making, a personal project. So I finished that film, and then 2021 starts, and I think, great, like new year, new me, new everything. And then I get this horrible news that the lead actress from my film has passed in a freak accident, and it fucks my whole world up. Like I go through,
and not just you, was one of your best friends.
Yeah, it's like a soulmate. Yeah. And so it really fucks me up. And then I'd been living in Arizona trying to work on a new film out there and writing a new film. And I'd finished that and I was like, cool, I'll do this. And then I just didn't want to do it. Like I took like a couple of weeks to really think like, what do I want to do next? I started talking to Brayden again, and that just made sense. Like you dealing with your trauma, me dealing with my trauma together.
And then us creating our own trauma.
Yeah. And we ended up creating a mountain more of trauma.
We decided to go to Washington State with no real plan other than like, maybe let's have a conversation with my mom about Carlos, since I've never fucking had one. And maybe I'll call some of her friends, and maybe I'll talk to my cousin who's like my big brother. He's 10 years older than me, and we grew up together.
Yeah.
I told my mom we were coming to Seattle to film a Nike job because I didn't want her to think that I was just coming there to see her, because, you know, that'd be, you know, way too nice of me as a son to do something.
Yeah, she'd know something's up.
She knows something's up.
We scrambled together. We get some camera gear, and we book some tickets, and we say, okay, we have like a very, very loose plan. Like it's super loose. Our goal is just to talk to your mom and then go find your father
and have some fun.
And then like and just
whatever.
I mean, we're good at that, but like we were trying to actually find your dad.
We were.
Yeah. And then so your mom picks us up from the airport. We stay with her.
Did she pick us up?
Yes, she did. God. You said it's the first time my mom's ever picked me up from the airport.
Might have been.
Which is sweet. She was so happy to have you there.
Yeah.
Anyway, little did she know.
And then she's asking us about what's this job, and I go into this giant lie about shooting women runners that are moms in Portland, which would be a fucking great campain, Nike.
Yeah.
Like, let's do this.
Yeah, call us up.
All ages, sizes, backgrounds, everything. Let's get real here. We're really lacking in this department. I think when I see ads and stuff.
I think your phone's vibrating right now. I think it's Nike.
Oh shit! Should we pause real quick?
No, we're good. I mean, we'll call them back. We go to Seattle. We get into it. We get super into it. We just start tracing your like whole story from the beginning,
with the idea that we're going. Sorry to cut you off. We're going to try. The big reason we're going there is to talk to my mom.
Yeah, that's the final ending of the trip.
We'll get into that, but
so we start with like your mom's friends.
Me and Mikey are working on a side project, and I haven't told my mom this because I don't know how she's going to react. So that's why I wanted to get your opinion. But it's about finding my dad.
I don't know exactly what happened. I know that she would love you to find your dad. I know she would want you to see your dad.
Okay.
I don't know how she'll react to it. And Brayden, this is for you though.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're worried about your mom's feelings, but if this is something that you need to do, gosh, you should do it. Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
It's Brayden. How are you? I don't even know the last time I talked to you. Anyways, okay, so can I ask you a question?
Oh, of course you can.
Okay, so, and my mom doesn't really know much about this yet, but I'm trying to find my dad.
Personally, I feel like things were never spoken to you about anything.
I wanted to know more about, like, were they dating? Was it a relationship, or was it just, you know, like all that sort of stuff? So I don't know.
I think that she would be very open for you to sit and have a discussion. I think for her, she's been wanting that for a really long time.
Yeah.
And you
just
know,
calling them out of the blue, these people I haven't talked to in 10 years, just calling them and saying, hey, like, I'm doing this project. I haven't told my mom yet, and I'm like, don't tell my mom. I'm trying to find Carlos.
Right.
And asking them about, because they've met him. They have all these wild stories, and I don't even know if we should really get into that too much, because it would just be too much. I think the gist of it is that, like, I got a good sense of who he was, but then I would get conflicting stories from my mom, and then a conflicting story from, like, one of her other friends. So it was like we'd get all this information and then be like, well, we still really don't know if he even knows I'm alive. We don't know if he thinks my mom got an abortion. We don't know anything, which was like...
That was a big part of it. Like,
crazy.
Just trying to figure out our bearings and trying to figure out if he even knew.
We still don't know.
Yeah, and we still don't. But that was our goal, to figure out who he was, where he fit into everything.
Where
and
he's
then,
been,
like,
what he's been doing.
Yeah, where he lives now.
Why did they stop talking? Because I'll tell you now, my mom is, from what we can gather, is still in love with him, which is wild because it's been 35 years and she's been remarried twice, you know,
right,
and has kids, and
so
we got all this information.
Yeah, there's a lot of info,
and there's just a ton of info.
But
it'll unfold.
Basically, it unfolded, and we would get little clues here and there, and that would open a door, and that would open another door, and
so we took my mom out to dinner to get her nice, you know, liquored up, so that we thought it would be easier. So
we have this meal; it's great, and
wasted. We've had so much sake,
and then
we get in the car. We shouldn't be driving.
We leave dinner, and then you say something like, can we go to where our childhood home was? We drive to your childhood home. And she's like, that was a great home. I wish I never sold it. Like, she just was reminiscing like good times with this family home. Then we drive off from there. It's pretty happy vibes in the car. And then I'm sitting in the back and you two in the front. And then I'm waiting for it. I'm like, he's going to ask this question at some point. And I had the camera on in the back seat too. Like, okay, when's he going? And then boom, he's like, so Mom, I've got something I want to ask you about. And I'm like, oh, and like my heart drops to my feet.
And then I think like an ASAP Rocky song comes on.
Well, that came on like in the awkward pause after it. But basically, he's like, Mom, who's my dad? And why haven't we talked about this? And that car just went from like top vibes to just like dead silent and just so awkward. And then, I don't want to talk about this, but I do want to talk about this. She said. And why haven't we talked about this?
And then she's like, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, you don't get to tell me that. And I got kind of rude, but like, fuck that, because it's
I get it.
I should have asked whatever I want.
You should know.
It's been so long.
Yeah, it's been 35
I'm like,
years.
I don't know. Let's break the ice. Like, and then basically, she said no.
You woke up early the next morning and you just left. And you just left me in the... You know, I get basically stuck in your family home with your mom and your stepdad, who both work from home. So I'm just like hiding out in the house all day. And I get it. You left because you were feeling very anxious and you just wanted some time away. And we still haven't had this conversation.
And we're leaving later that day, right?
We're leaving. Like, we had to be like that night. We had to fly. I'm looking at the clock like, we got to get this interview. Otherwise, this is kind of a waste of time, this whole trip. So I'm just like lingering around the house, trying to hide, trying to avoid everyone because I know how awkward it is.
Let's just also add that my stepdad is what you would call a punisher. Where you just get like punished by his presence of just... He's a great guy. Well, you know, I'll say what the fuck I want because it's my fucking...
Yeah, so I can't say what the fuck I want, but
I'm not a fan. Whatever. If you listen to it, I'm sorry. Treat my mom nice and, you know, everything's fine. But whatever. It's hard to be in that house. It's a very weird tension. It's almost unbearable.
He's just around, like, you know.
He's just around. So it makes it hard to talk to my mom because he'd just sit there and listen. And it's like, dude, this has nothing to do with you. Just like, please go do something else.
At the end of that awkward car ride, we kind of had said, okay, well, let's do it tomorrow night when you feel comfortable. She kind of agrees to that and goes to bed. We have our nightcap and we go to bed too. And then
we go to bed and we'll sit there with our eyes open
for 4 hours and then get up. Your stepdad's, he's someone that's just around the house. Like, you can't avoid him. And then if he hears noise, he kind of like he's just there. He's just like a fucking light that turns on and he's like in your face. And I'm like, shit, there's no way we can have this like conversation that hasn't been had in 35 years about something very precious, about who Brayden's father is and why he doesn't exist and why they don't talk about it. And we can't have it in the house with the stepdad around. And I'm thinking about it in the house all day while Brayden's away. And I go down the kitchen to make a coffee or something, and your mum just appears out of nowhere and
naked, tries to seduce you. Found my dad.
Yeah. And I was like, here I am. And then next minute, Brayden's sitting on my lap. And I was like, I told you.
Eating ice cream.
Yeah. She comes down and she's got this big folder in her hands and like a strange look in her eye. And she just kind of like comes to this table and dumps this folder in front of me. And then the first photo on top of this folder she has is of what I'm assuming your father. It's like a photo of her on a cruise ship.
Yeah, it's the only photo
like
I have.
Fucking 35 years ago. Yeah. And then this guy, like, that looks like the fun of the party. You know, he's got a mustache, a mini afro. He's like dark skinned, and he's got a big smile on his face. And she's like, that's Brayden's father. And I'm like, shit. Like, and she's telling me, I've met your mom once before. And we sit down and we speak for 15, 20 minutes. She's telling me everything, like everything about your father. And I'm just sitting there like, holy shit. And I'm like grabbing my phone and trying to record, you know, as a voice memo so I can remember what she's telling me so I can relay it to you. Conversation finally ends and then you text me or something and say, hey, I'm kind of close. I'm nearly home. I'm like, don't come into the house. And I said, I got to tell you something. And I kind of run outside and I jump in the car with you and we go for a drive around the block and I basically tell you your whole father's story. But I'm feeling very uncomfortable because I'm telling you. Like, why am I telling you?
Because she didn't feel comfortable enough to tell me.
But I get it. Like, looking back on it, I'm like, it was just a conversation that hadn't ever been had. And I think she used me as like a trial run to make herself feel comfortable to when she had to speak to you. But yeah, it was a very intense thing. Like, going from her to you. And then we come back to the house. She kind of comes downstairs and she's like, let's do this, Brayden. Let's talk. But, you know,
I say, no, I don't want to talk about it.
And
I'm just kidding.
It's like, it's still awkward. And, you know, your stepdad's watching infomercials and golf upstairs and TV's blaring. I'm like, okay, we can't film the house. We have to film somewhere out of the house.
I mentioned I'm a photographer, so I understand like what looks good. And I say, hey, why don't we film it in the car? This old 90s Buick. It'll be beautiful. And our only option.
There's still a time frame going. We still have to leave this house.
It really was the only thing we could do was film in the car.
We're like down to 2 or 3 hours. And I'm like, fuck, we have to get this.
So now I have to ask my mom to sit in this old Buick out in the street and wear a microphone and talk to me about my fucking dad, which is so weird. But it's so weird that it worked because it kind of was like, I don't think we could have just sat down and had a conversation. I think it needed to be like in the context of like a weird, like, oh, mom, I'm trying to make art. I'm an artist. Like, ooh,
right.
Like, look, can we talk? Like,
yeah.
But deep down, like, that's all I wanted. Like, let's
talk.
I
mean, so basically, I rush around. I grab 2 cameras, I think, some mics. I quickly go into it's your cousin's Buick that we'd borrowed for the week. So I go into this, you know, shitty beaten up. Sorry, not shitty. Buick's one of our sponsors. We do love Buick.
Well, that one was beat up, but when it was new, it was one of the nicest vehicles on the road. Have you seen their new cars?
I mean, they are comfortable.
The new Buick.
The new Buick.
Horn?
Man, we love that horn.
The door handles? It's beautiful. It's the AC pumps.
If you are hot, it'll get you cold.
Yeah, I love Buicks.
Yeah. Anyway, enough about Buick. So we're in your cousin's Buick.
It's never enough about Buicks, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, never enough. I run into your cousin's Buick. It's parked outside. I mic it up. I put a camera in there. I have another camera on legs outside the car, like 15, 20 feet away. And Brayden, and I mic Brayden and his mum up, and they go into this car, and they have this conversation they haven't had in a long time about your father.
Maybe insert it right now.
So we can play that right now.
There's a lot of things I want to know and I've never asked, so I'll start over. So I don't know why we've never talked about this. Why do you think we've never talked about this? Yeah. Like, tell me everything. Things you don't think I would want to know or shouldn't know.
Okay, well, I don't know what you want to know, but
I want to know everything, Mom. Can I just say something? It's the reason I want to know everything because I grew up without a dad, and my life has been, I don't know, maybe you don't think so, but it's been pretty traumatic. Like, just let me talk. I've had a pretty traumatic childhood, and what do you mean? I want to know everything.
So I'll tell you everything. Please. It may be painful, but I'll tell you everything.
Painful to who?
So, I mean, it's painful to me still.
But it's painful to me that I'm 35 and I don't know anything about my dad. Okay, so I want you to set your feelings aside and let me feel something.
And
it was great. I got to ask questions.
You could ask whatever you wanted. But it was intense. Like, it was, it was
fucking crazy.
Like, the most emotional...
It's like I was reborn.
Yeah, you said that when we came out. I'm, like, listening on headphones across the road. So, but I can just look at
So I don't think we should get into what she told us.
No.
We'll save it. But some of the things she said to me were heartbreaking, mind-blowing, like beautiful, really sad, depressing. Yeah. Like, it wasn't just like, this is your dad. It was like, it was heavy, and it was, I mean, you can't make that kind of shit up.
No, you couldn't. And it was like, tear jerking. Like, I'm crying and I'm listening on headphones.
And then I'm crying. Yeah. And my mom's crying.
So anyway, we have this conversation, and we're still on our fucking watch clock. So we're like, okay, we do this interview. It's now dark, and we just like pack up shop and
leave.
And she's like
fucked up.
Yeah, she's fucked up. But she's crying. But she's also like, that felt so good to get out. You know, because it needed to. Well,
also I think that generation of, like, you know, people, at least my mom's generation and ours too, there's this stigma about like going to therapy and stuff. So like she's never been to therapy about it. I started going to therapy like 6 months ago about all this, and it's really helped me.
Right.
And I just want to say thank you to BetterHelp. It's been a really big life change for me, and I appreciate all that. And they're a great sponsor. But
I'm not gonna back BetterHelp up yet. I've been through 2 BetterHelp.
Well, I have a great one. I have a great counselor, and I really love him. And don't fuck this up for me. This could be great.
Yeah.
So, anyways, basically, my mom is really fucked up from this conversation, and then I'm like, all right, peace. We're going to the airport. So
we just jumped back in the Buick because we love that ride.
She thinks we're going to Portland.
Okay, yeah. So she still thinks we're going to Portland to do this Nike job, but in reality, from Brady's research, he knew that his father lived. There was an address in Florida.
Yeah.
So basically, we had planned our trip to go from New York to Seattle and then to Florida.
Yep. So we went to the airport, and
that's part 1, really. And then we fly direct to Florida, and that's a whole another chapter.
Yeah. Episode 2, we'll talk about Florida. We talked to my mom, whatever, we're done. My mom's really fucked up. And then I'm like, all right, I gotta go. I have to go to this job. We hug. I do feel better. I feel like we're more on the same page, and I appreciate her telling me what she told me, even though it took way too long. And we sort of have issues, you know, about that, and whatever, we'll work through it. And then from the research I'd done, I knew the Carlos that I think was my Carlos was in Florida. So let's go to Florida. Let's go to Miami. So we went to Florida, and that's episode 2.
That's episode 2.
I hope that...
We're just trying to recap the story for us. I hope you guys are like understanding the kind of dynamics of this whole story. It's kind of complex. We're trying to tell it in a very
almost just trying to tell it
way.
So that we can understand it a bit more.
Yeah, because there's so many things we're not saying here, but I think the journey of finding Brayden's dad, and then it's just been crazy for both of us.
It's probably going to get crazier.
It does get crazier. So we'll leave it at that and tune in for part 2.
So stay tuned.
Or don't. Yeah. Who gives a fuck? This journey continues.
Have a great night.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
We got to go to dinner.